Hello, everybody. Happy Mother's Day. I'd like to begin this morning with a very, very short meditation. So if you go with me, just take a deep breath, close your eyes. And in this very, very special place, this deep place within our hearts, in memory, we're going to go back in time, precisely 90 days. And on that Sunday in February, we were walking up to the church. The wind chill factor was below zero. Our clothing offered no protection from the chilling wind. It took straight to the bone. Every part of us was crying out for warmth. It was so cold. So cold our teeth were chattering. And we prayed out, "Dear God, just give me some heat. Just allow me to be warm, that's all I want." And presto, our prayers have been answered. The heat feels so good. We now come back to this time and place for Thanksgiving for the glorious heat. Okay. Makes it a little better, doesn't it? Yeah. Well, I'd like to welcome you, especially the mothers, on this special day. Mothers are just incredible. They know what we don't think they know. They know what they don't know. When the time comes, they have this intuition and this instinct to do whatever is needed to create a zone of wellness for their children or whoever they're caring for. Mothers are very, very nurturing, and they're very wise. Recently in the paper, there's been articles about air control people collapsing under the stress and falling asleep at their stations. And I say, put a mother in there. She can handle 3 stations at once and never break a sweat. That's right. I watch them at the park, and they have this, they're looking at the landscape to make sure there's no danger or harm coming to their child. They watch the child. They know what the child will do before it even does it. They stop it if it's going to get hurt. They just have this extraordinary, deep sense of creating and maintaining wellness for their children. I talked to my cousin Ozzy this week, and he said that Olga Nordstrom, his next-door neighbor, her son, Peter Norberg, had gone off to State University in Brookings, South Dakota, about 60 miles away, and she had not heard from Peter for 3 months, so she decided to surprise him with a visit. Olga drove to Brookings one Sunday, found his apartment, went up, rang the bell, and when the door opened, there was a very beautiful young woman standing there. And Olga says, "Is this the residence of Peter Norberg?" And she said, "Yes, I'm Allison." And Allison called out for Peter, who was absolutely shocked to the point of fainting when he saw his mother standing at the door. And immediately he began stammering and he began stuttering about how Allison was his roommate and that they had a friendship and that it was like siblings. And he took her and showed her Allison's bedroom. And then he took her and showed her his bedroom because he wanted to make sure that Olga didn't think they were living in sin. He knew that would offend her Lutheran code of moral decency. And so he went on and on about how they were just friends and buddies. Well, they sat down and for 2 hours kind of talked around the elephant in the room. Finally, Peter and Allison got up. They went to the grocery store, got some food, came back. They all had dinner. Olga got in her car and left. The next morning, Allison discovered that the sterling silver gravy ladle her grandmother had given her was missing. She looked all over for it, couldn't find it. After 2 days passed, she asked Peter, "You think your mother might have taken it?" Peter thought. He said, "Well, I don't know." So he sat down and wrote his mother a letter. He said, "Dear Mother, Allison's sterling silver gravy ladle has gone missing. I'm not saying you took it. I'm not saying you didn't take it. I'm just saying, do you know anything about it?" Well, about a week later, Peter gets a letter from his mother. He opens it up and it says, "Dear Peter, I'm not saying you're sleeping with Allison. I'm not saying you're not sleeping with Allison. I'm just saying, if Allison was sleeping in her own bed, she would have found the gravy ladle by now." Okay. God bless mothers. They just have a way of finding stuff out, don't they? You know, when I think of mothers, I think of nurturing. That's what mothering is. Whether it's a male or a female, whether it's a biological mother, an adoptive mother, mothers nurture. And when we look at nature, we see that nurturing aspect every place. When you look at the far out aspects of the universe, there's the nature, Mother Nature itself, which creates these certain wellness zones so that life can thrive. And in the far reaches of our galaxy, these stars continue to grow and continue to grow and continue to grow until they become supernova stars, and then they explode. And in the explosion, they add nitrogen and helium to the atmosphere, which allows us to survive. Well, if too many stars are exploding, the helium and nitrogen can grow to a point where life actually collapses. And so somehow nature has a way of doing this. And if there's too much helium and nitrogen in the atmosphere, the number of stars exploding begins to decrease. And then when helium and hydrogen get to a point where it's becoming too scarce, life will deteriorate, the number of stars increases in regards to exploding stars. I mean, that's like universal intelligence. It's like the Mother Nature has a way of controlling a wellness zone for us. When we look at Mother Earth, it also has a number of ways of controlling the atmosphere around us so that we can survive in this wellness zone. And one is the temperature. If the temperature gets too high, the ice caps begin to build. As the ice caps build, they begin to reflect the sun off, and it gets colder and colder and colder to the point where it threatens life survival. So when this happens, the Earth itself begins to heat up. It's not the sun. The Earth begins to heat up to melt down the ice caps in order to create this wellness zone. And as we look at it over time, it's this continual flux of high temperatures to low temperatures going back and forth, but always stopping at the boundary that will threaten life. And when the temperatures get too low, Earth reverses itself. There's more carbon dioxide in the air, and that threatens life, so the Earth begins to draw down on it. And drawing down on that carbon dioxide, it begins to increase the coolness of the Earth. Now, the Earth has a way of doing this. It's a living organism. It's nurturing each and every one of us. Whether it's the universe, Mother Nature, or whether it's Mother Earth, there is this wellness zone that it maintains and protects so that we can blossom and thrive in our lives. Now, bear with me, just one more example. Our body has a nurturing, mothering aspect. And in the blood cells, there are protons. And the protons flit all about, and they bring a spark of life to us. But if we took a certain region of a blood cell and electronically counted the number of protons, hypothetically would say there's 1 million of them. We look at that same spot days later, and there's 2 million protons. And then 1,500,000. And then 1 million again. And it's this flux once again, continuing to go back and forth in number, because the body knows if you go over 2 million protons, once again, life is going to collapse. And if you go under 1 million, life is going to deteriorate. So it maintains this wellness zone so we, not only body, but mind and spirit, can continue to blossom and thrive. Now, at this point in time, you might be wondering, why on earth is he giving us a science lesson on Mother's Day Sunday? And the reason for that is because mothers do exactly the same thing. When a child is born, in their mind, in their heart, in their spirit, they have this wellness zone that they want to maintain for their child. And in that wellness zone, there is safety, there is support, there is nurturing, and it's always on the front of their mind, the wellness zone for their child. And once again, whether it's the biological mother, the adoptive mother, the male mother, or the female mother, that wellness zone is on their mind constantly. And they're trying to maintain it for the child or the person that they're caring for. It's that wonderful sense of nurturing. It's everywhere in the universe. It's every place within inside us, each and every one of us. Now, the reason I bring this up is because the wellness zone itself is important for us to grow and for us to evolve. If we take a look at the very essence of our being, in order to be all that we can be, in order to exercise the greatest degree of potential, we have to, in a sense, establish our own wellness zone. We have to determine what is good for me, what is going to allow me to thrive, what's going to allow me to blossom. And we're called on to mother ourselves because there's a spirit within us, another aspect of our being that is coming into expression, that is coming into its full glory, but it needs this wellness zone in order to survive that, in order for it to blossom and to thrive and to flourish. So I ask you for a moment this morning to take a look at your wellness zone. What does that look like? Perhaps there's people in your life that don't fit in that wellness zone. Perhaps there's conditions in your life, perhaps your work environment, perhaps your home environment, that don't fit in that wellness zone. It doesn't allow you to be all you can be and to feel as well as you can. Now, we look at mothers, and you might think back, like, well, I don't really remember my mother being too concerned or too caring or too involved in my well-being. And that's because some of our mothers were alcoholics, some were drug addicts, some were severely depressed, some were angry, some were mean, some were removed, some had abandoned us and left. And we don't know why. It's their story, they're on their own path. But I do know this, that every mother, no matter who it is, always has at the front of her mind the wellness for her children. And so whatever your history might be with your mother, it's just know that she wished you well. She wanted you to have this wellness zone, even though she wasn't able to provide it for you. But she wanted that in her very heart. So with that same sense, we turn to ourselves and we begin to create our own wellness zone in our life and in our world. And we do things that uplifts us. We do things that makes us feel well. We do things that supports us and makes us go forward to live the life that we're made to live. As we go into meditation this morning, I want you to just think a little bit about that. Think about your wellness zone. Think about what's in your life right now that might need to be pushed out, or might need to be contained a little bit, or might need to be nurtured itself. We'll now move into meditation.